everyone, welcome back to my channel and thanks so much for clicking on today's video. My name's Olivia. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're an oldie but a goodie, welcome back. So as you can tell by today's video, this video is specifically geared towards mummy content. I'm a mum of a 2-year-old, and about a year ago now I put up a video just when my daughter was turning 3 months, or just after she had turned 3 months, looking at kind of 0 to 3 months baby essentials. I found it, I think, a little bit overwhelming when I was trying to plan for what I needed for baby, because there were just tons and tons of lists about you need this, you need that, you need that. And I thought it might be useful to put together a video like that to just kind of look at it from a kind of hindsight perspective and look at what did I actually use, what was useful, what wasn't useful. So if you are a mum or a mum-to-be, or you just enjoy that kind of content, then I'll make sure to link the video up here, but also in the description box down below, so you can check that out. It's specifically for 0 to 3. I did mention in that video that if you guys liked the video, then I would do follow-on series. So I was supposed to do a 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12 months. But when I first put up the video, it wasn't one of my popular videos. It kind of just sat, and I kind of forgot about it because I kind of went back a couple of times and I could see that the views were low. It wasn't really picking up much traction, so I left it alone. I have had a few comments on that video over the past couple of months, so I went back to check the other day and I was like, hold on a minute, somehow this is one of my most watched videos on this channel. So I asked over on Instagram whether it would still be useful to do a kind of update to that video, but of course now my daughter's 2, I don't think I can remember, for example, the brackets 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, but maybe I could do a kind of combined video from 3 months all the way up to 12 months, so to the 1-year mark. So that's what today's video is. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then just keep watching. I would love it also if you enjoy this content, and please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It would mean so much to me to join the fam gang. You can also click on the bell for notifications to make sure you get notified when I upload. Okay, that's enough of an intro. Let's get into the video. Alright, so I've taken a lot of notes down in my notebook, and I've tried to kind of structure them in different topics. So we'll be breaking it down into things to do with feeding, so that means breastfeeding, but also the whole weaning process, sleeping, sleep training, moving baby to their own room, play and entertainment, and just kind of like babies moving around, crawling, walking, and all of that. And then I'll do a section right at the end where I talk about products that I found really useful, and then those are the ones that I kind of think you don't necessarily 100% need. So if you're trying to prioritize which kind of items to get, what to put aside, or what maybe to put on a wish list but not maybe get immediately, then I'll talk about those things at the end of the video. I'll also try and include timestamps, so check the description box for that. It might be easy for you to kind of like navigate to the points that you'd like to cover. So again, this video is 4 to 12 months. And also I will be incorporating the comments. Some of you sent me some questions and comments on Instagram about this topic. So when it comes up, I'll make sure to cover it within that. So the first topic is going to be about feeding. I didn't cover too much on this in the first video. We tried to do exclusive breastfeeding, but I think I might have mentioned that I had a challenge with milk coming in. So I was in hospital until I begged basically my doctor to sign me out, but my milk was coming in really slowly and not great quantities. And so we did actually from the offset have to balance with breastfeeding and formula feeding from the get-go. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I was hoping that I would have enough milk to feed baby, and I really did try like all of the ways to kind of boost my milk, but it just never got up to like that super level that a lot of women talk about. So I wasn't able to like freeze milk and like bag it all up and have stashes for months and months. So if you're interested in a specific like breastfeeding and boosting up your milk, maybe this isn't the segment for you, because I didn't have that experience. But if you are struggling with milk, or you would just kind of like to have a plan in place, then I'll talk about some of these things. Actually, maybe at the time that I was filming that video and up until I started going back to work, I had actually managed to kind of lift up my milk production to a decent level. Baby was almost exclusively breastfeeding, maybe with just like 1 or 2 bottles of formula a day. But as soon as I went back to work, I think just being in that environment, kind of just messed me up, and my milk production dropped quite rapidly. To the point that baby just gave up on milk. She was just tired. She was like, I'm not getting enough milk, and she left it alone. So we stopped breastfeeding at 5 months. So we were doing both formula and milk up until the 5-month mark, and I was now doing majority breast milk. But at the 5-month or 5.5 months, she was like, I'm done. I really did try to encourage her and whatever, but she just really wasn't having it. And I started to travel as well for work, so that interrupted things a lot. I just kind of threw things up in the air a little bit. I did feel very guilty about it at the time, but I think I've gotten over it now. And so in terms of formula, the formula that we found that worked for us was the NAN brand, N-A-N. I'll include like a little picture here. But the one that really worked for us was the hyperallergenic version. So she had a little bit of colic, and also she suffered from a lot of indigestion pain. And that was linked to the colic, but I think for her it was also a little bit aggravated because she found it hard to pass basically mess. So she didn't go to the toilet as often as other babies were reporting to go to the toilet, and you could tell that she was in a lot of discomfort. So in the last video I mentioned Infocol as something that we tried to kind of help with her colic, which was actually brilliant. But we also found that when we switched from the regular formula milk to the hyperallergenic milk, that it made like a massive difference in how her stomach would react to it, and yeah, just generally how she was feeling. There was still a challenge because she was still a bit uncomfortable, but honestly it made a big difference. Something else that I want to talk about, which is a bit controversial, you can choose to take this how you will, but I kind of was just like at my wit's end and took my mum's advice on this, was that when she was 4 months old, we gave her pawpaw fruit, papaya. We basically blended it up with a lot of water, so it was basically just like water with, it was like papaya juice but not thick, it was like really light. And then would give her like basically just like a couple of spoons a day. The first time it cleared out from her system, it was basically, you could see the papaya, it hadn't like blended into the poop, it was like obvious that there was pawpaw in her nappy. But after like the second or third time, it was perfectly fine. And that helped her tremendously with her tummy issues, with her regularly going to the toilet then after that. But then also I think her stomach being able to adapt and adjust to things. She had already started showing signs at 4 months of wanting to, you know, really being interested in the food that we were eating, just wanting to like see what we were touching, what was on our plates. Like you could just tell that she was already a little bit intrigued. So we took a risk and it paid off. I wouldn't say everyone to do that, but just to let you know that that's something that really worked for us in terms of helping her digestive system to kind of regulate and get back to normal. So in terms of like weaning and starting to introduce foods to her, we kept this pawpaw going for a little bit, and that was the only thing that we did. And then I think when she'd hit the 6 months mark, or very immediately before it, we then started to prepare her actual food and to get her interested in different flavors. So we had like butternut, we had dengu, what else did we try her on at the beginning? Sweet potato, other like just single ingredient foods, carrots, mashed carrots. So we would basically just blend the food without anything else in it apart from water, no salt, no seasoning, no nothing, and then just give her that one ingredient food. There were some that she loved more than others. So she loved sweet potato, but she couldn't stand butternut, at least at the beginning. She enjoyed dengu and she had that for a while. So we just started to basically start her off on different ones. We would do like a whole week of that one meal, and then once her system had shown that there were no reactions and she was okay with the flavor, then we would try for something else. So that probably went on for about a month as we were testing out like different things, and then we started to do like combinations of things. So like, you know, butternut with a bit of like literal boiled chicken soup, like you boil some chicken bones and you take the broth and you add it into something, and then we would give her that. If you're looking for like recipes and things, then there's tons of resources on Pinterest and probably even on here on YouTube where you can actually get recipes of things and how to blend them at different stages. I think Pinterest had a ton of these resources, and I just kind of followed a few of those, trying to introduce her to a few different things. I think we also gave her, like, peeled the skin off apples and boiled them, and gave her apples and pears. She interestingly loved oranges and lemons, actual lemons. We tried her out with some lemons when she was, I think, about, this might have even been before she turned 6 months, and maybe like 5 months, and we squeezed some lemon into her mouth, and we were expecting her to do that, you know, horrible face thing. The girl loved it. She was about that life, and she was eating the lemon. Yeah, and she really enjoyed it. So citrus fruits have always been a favourite of hers. Apples weren't at the beginning, but now she's obsessed with apples. She has like an apple almost every day. We did bananas, we did matoke, you know, the whole thing. There's so many different foods, particularly in like African context, vegetarian foods that you can introduce baby to slowly over time. The only things we didn't introduce to her right from the offset was eggs. Because I was weary about her developing an allergy, and also nuts. I think nuts she maybe started having when she was a little bit older, towards 1 year, and she's obsessed with nuts now. So like any nutty things, sim, like she will eat like a whole bowl of that and be happy by herself now. But we didn't introduce it early because I was wary of the allergies. The same for eggs. We didn't give her eggs at the outset, and I think you are only supposed to give either the yolk or the whites. You don't give the whole egg at the beginning. I'll make sure to check and I'll put it here. But whatever it is, you're supposed to only give the one or the other to the child at a certain age, so that you can see if they have any allergies, and then kind of work your way up to like a full egg, which is not a fan of eggs, and maybe because we waited so long to give it to her. I had a question on Instagram that asked, how did you kind of decide to make that transition? What kind of helped you in terms of deciding that? For the breastfeeding, she decided for us. So she left it alone, and so we just kind of went along and did what we had to do. But in terms of introducing foods, it was really, we took her cues. So she would show us that she was interested in our food because she would look at it, and you could see her watching me eat, and she was so intrigued, like, what's that they're putting in their mouth, and I only get a bottle. Like, you could tell. I think the flavors, she could smell all those things. And it was just like, you know, really exciting to her. So we started just slowly, and kind of just took the cue with her. Whatever she liked, we can kind of continued with. Whatever she didn't like, we also continued with. Interestingly enough, there was a stage in her life where she was obsessed with all kienyeji mboga. So we eat a lot of kienyeji greens in our house, and so we usually have osuga, you know, we have terere, we have lots of other mbogas, and mrenda, although I don't like mrenda, but you know, there's a lot of mboga that we have in our diet generally, and she was obsessed with like osuga, even the bitter vegetables, she really loved them, and I think we took it a little bit too far, and then she's kind of fallen out of love with them. So that is definitely something I would say just to watch out for. Like, don't overdo one particular flavor. Even if your child likes it, don't overdo it, because I think there will come a point where the child is like, I've had enough of this flavor, like, stop giving it to me, and they will refuse it. In terms of meats, we incorporated chicken and fish quite early on in terms of introducing her to meat, just because they're much easier to eat for a child with no teeth. I'll explain that a little bit later, but they're much easier, they're softer on the teeth. It's white meat, so it's a little bit healthier for the baby to have as well, but just to make sure that she had proteins, we did incorporate that, as well as like vegetarian proteins. So chicken and fish, and then later on we started to incorporate, say, like mince meat, not like nyama, because yeah, it's easier for her to digest if it was like minced up. In terms of preparing food for baby, what I would 100% advise for you to do, if you can, is to kind of do it in a meal prep fashion. So to bulk cook, prepare the food, blend it, whatever, and then put it in little containers that you can store away and then pull out when you need to. So that's what I did. So I would basically, on the weekend, draw up a menu for her for the next week, and then prepare all the veggies, blend everything down, and then store them away. So the containers that I really liked look like this. They're basically small little containers with a lid. I got these in packs from Carrefour. I think I've got round ones like this, and then I've also got square ones as well. Each of them comes with a lid, and then they kind of come in these multicolored colours. They come in, I think, in a stack of like 10 or so. So I got a stack of 10 round ones and a stack of 10 square ones. So that's what I would use for meal prep. These are pretty big when you're starting out, so you don't necessarily need this full size when you're starting out, but as baby grows and their appetite grows, then you will need more. So I just decided to get a slightly bigger size rather than, you know, a really dinky one, because then you can put in the amount of food that you need. So as she was starting out, you know, this would be like a couple of tablespoons and that's it. But as she got a bigger appetite, then we would add more to this and then freeze for the week. Take things out in the morning, let them defrost, and then warm them up on the stove or in the microwave, whatever, and give to her. So I found these really handy. I cannot for the life of me remember how much they were, but I do remember that I got them in Carrefour. So just check in the like Tupperware section. You might come across these. These were great. These wash really well. They're BPA free, so you know they're not giving any nasty chemicals to baby, and they can go in the freezer perfectly fine, as well as in hot water if you need to, like, you know, sterilize them or whatever. We've still got them because now she eats the food that we eat. So, but I still find them really handy for kind of like in the kitchen when you've got little bits of food left over and you just want somewhere to put them. They're great for that as well. So we still use them for like regular day to day. In terms of actually feeding her, we got little bowls as well. I can't remember where I got those bowls from. It may have also been Carrefour. They're also colourful. They come, say, like in a pack of 5 little bowls, and then you can get like feeding spoons from the like baby aisle in the supermarket. You want like a nice small spoon that will fit in their mouth that isn't like a regular metal spoon, because it needs to be a little bit flexible for their gums and not to kind of like cut them in their mouth or anything like that. And also like for new baby teeth, which are very soft, you don't want to use anything too harsh. So that's what we've been using. Feeding as well, you're going to need the bibs. So I mentioned in the first video about cloth bibs that we got for her when she was just young and like spit up and stuff. But as she got older and she was eating them, we actually made sure that the bibs were kind of waterproof backed, or actually just fully waterproof. I'll include a little picture here. There's tons of different styles that you can go for. There's a type that can catch food at the bottom. There's a type that's just like regular. There's a type that's like a t-shirt that they can wear. So you just choose, you know, whatever you think would be useful for you. So she was on formula for quite a while, I think more than a lot of babies are. I think people usually start incorporating milk into babies' diets around like 8-9 months or so. We tried. She really wasn't about that life. Like, she would spit it out. She didn't like it because she just didn't, that taste wasn't familiar to her mouth. So what I tried to do was to incorporate a lot of yogurt into her diet, which she loves now, still to this day. And that's just like plain natural yogurt. So not anything flavored, not anything fancy, just kawaida, plain yogurt, or like, you know, mala, that's what I'm talking about, like plain yogurt. And so I started incorporating like a small yogurt for her every day. So she would have some in the morning and some in the afternoon. And then when her diet could like accommodate it, then she would almost have one in one sitting. We would squeeze fruit into it as well. She really loved that, like passion fruit into it, or slice of mango and put into it, and she would really, really enjoy that. So that's how I managed to compensate for the calcium, because I was trying to reduce her formula, because now she was eating more, she didn't need as much formula. But for her, milk was just so much of a struggle. Eventually, we did manage to move her over to milk, but I think that was like almost at 1 year, because she just really wasn't feeling it. And we started slowly. The milk that we prefer to get is one that's super high fat in content, so something like KCC. Or if we can't find a KCC Gold Crown, then I'll do a regular KCC or Brookside if I have to, but that's what we prefer to give her. So now she's really into the milk. She doesn't do formula anymore, but it took some time to kind of wean her off it completely. So we started off with her bottles in between the day. So we would switch 1 or 2 of those out for milk. And then we did that for a while, and then she was left basically with her morning formula bottle and her evening formula bottle to make sure she made it through the night. And then we eliminated one and then the other, and then yeah, we made the transition, and it was such a blessing, because listen, you guys, formula is so expensive. And yeah, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Like, I pray that you get a lot of milk so that you don't have to struggle with that, because yeah, formula is expensive and the baby needs it. And if they reject regular milk, you can't yeah, you can't deny them that. So yes, do it slowly according to their schedule, and they'll eventually kind of ease into it and fit right in. Okay, I want to move on to a very small segment on teething, and just because it's related to food, I guess. Babies, of course, teeth at very different stages. Baby's development kind of varies. So, you know, don't look at your baby and look at another baby and try to compare them, because everyone is running their own race. And teething was the thing that showed me that so much, because this baby started drooling like a lot, to the point where we were sure teeth were coming in at about 5 months. So I was like, great, this is it. Like, you know, she's gonna have teeth in soon. We'll be able to start, you know, she'll be able to chew on stuff, la 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 la. Her teeth didn't actually come in until I think a few weeks before her first birthday. No joke. Her teeth didn't come in until a couple of weeks before her first birthday. But she was drooling this entire time from 5 months onwards. So every month I would just be like, God, because I could see the little white of the teeth on her gums, but it took so long for them to come in. But I understand that was exactly what her dad was like when he was young, and his teeth didn't come in for very long. So his grandma would tell me, like, chill, don't worry, like, this is hereditary, they're gonna come in eventually. And they did. What we did for teething, and when they did come in, they kind of came in like super rapid. Like, you'd see one tooth today, 2 days now there's another tooth. Next week there's another tooth. 2 weeks later there's another tooth. So they came in really rapidly when they did, and coincided with a kind of burst for development for her, because she also started walking around that time as well. Yeah, so all of this kind of happened at the same time. In terms of discomfort for her teeth, we did get some teething gel. It wasn't Bonjela, but it was something like Bonjela. I can't remember the name of it. But just go and look for some teething gel. Help them with that. You can also buy teethers and put them in the freezer, and then take them out when they're let them like cool down just a little bit, and then they'll gnaw on that, and that will kind of help cool the gums and you know, relax the kind of pain that they're feeling. She didn't really have temperature, but I know some children do have temperature, so if they have a temperature, then you can also give them, you know, some paracetamol or whatever to kind of regulate that temperature and bring everything down. But it's just one of those phases that so many other people were going through, and I was like, what's happening with my baby? But she eventually caught up, and now we're fine, full set of teeth. Okay, so in terms of sleeping and sleep training, we didn't actually do any sleep training. If you can and you have the guts for it and you can do it, I would highly recommend it, because it just means that you put baby into a routine very fast, and they learn how to self-soothe and can sleep on their own very quickly. We didn't do it because she kind of fell into her own routine very fast. So the first couple of weeks she was definitely like an alarm, like 2 hours on the dot she was awake for a feed. So like you just feel like you're resting, and then she was awake. So it was definitely a dark time during those days, but you eventually get over it, or like settle into it or whatever. But then she just by herself kind of started taking longer naps, and being asleep for much more during the night. So it kind of elevated up to a point where she was like, she would only wake up like once or twice in the night, which was brilliant. And that was at about 4 months when I returned to work. So it coincided for me really well, and allowed me to kind of focus on my work and get enough rest for my work day. But I know there are some babies who literally don't sleep, or, you know, maintain that like 2 hours on clockwork for a very long time. You might want to consider whether sleep training is for you or not. There are loads of different methods, and there are actually sleep trainers available in Nairobi. So just do a little bit of research, and I'm sure you can find something and a way that works for you. She was in our bedroom. In terms of sleeping in her own room, she was in our bedroom for, I think, over the year mark. I can't remember exactly when we moved her over, but definitely she was in our room for a while. We could have possibly moved her earlier, but I think it was definitely me being like, oh, but my baby in my room, like, yeah, you know when you just have that mummy, like, yeah, I wanted her around a lot more. But she wasn't sleeping in our bed. She had her own cot like set up on the side of the room, and that's where she would sleep. So she slept through the night from about 5 months, and kind of continued that way, apart from like once or twice, but she pretty much settled into her regular way of doing things, and then she would be up pretty early, say like 6 a.m. actually, not 7 a.m. 6 a.m. So, you know, 6 a.m. I would be up, and then the day would start like that. Another developmental milestone is, of course, moving around, so crawling and walking and taking the first steps. With this, I think she was about around the right mark. So I think just before she turned 1 year old, or just around the time that she turned 1 year old, she was walking. She didn't really do crawling so much, and my mum tried. Like, my mum tried. She would put the baby on the floor, skooma her, and she would like move her legs and try and teach her how to do it. But I just don't think she was interested in it. Like, that wasn't an efficient way for her to move around. I think she ended up actually properly crawling for about 2 months, and then she was up on her feet and on the go. And when she got up on her feet, she was like running. So it wasn't like she got up and then she was like tittle toddle. It was a little bit of tittle toddle, but very quickly she kind of figured it out, got her balance together, and she was running around the place. We didn't do too much. I think when babies start moving, the biggest fear is always about baby proofing. And for us, that wasn't a nightmare. And so we didn't have to, like, you know, put things in the sockets and, you know, proof all the cupboards so that she wouldn't go in there. I mean, if she got into the cupboards, it was mostly like Tupperware and pots and pans that was within her reach. So I didn't really mind her going in there and having a little rummage, because then she eventually got bored of it. So maybe consider, like, in terms of your kitchen, where you put certain things. And what we did do, of course, is move like cleaning materials from the toilet and stuff. If they were at a low place, we kind of moved them up to a higher position so that she couldn't reach them. Try and go for stuff that has like a child lock on it. And medicine and stuff would never be put within her reach. It was always, you know, on top of the fridge or in a cupboard in the kitchen, high up, so that she couldn't access it at all. I did think about putting a gate at the bottom of the stairs and at the top of the stairs, but we didn't end up doing it in the end because she wasn't so fascinated by the stairs. So I think maybe just take a guide from your child and see how they interact with it. When she did start crawling, it was when she was much more comfortable with kind of scaling things. So she did start to crawl up the stairs. She wouldn't walk up the stairs, but you know, she'd make it up 2 stairs and then she'd be brought back down. And then eventually she was like, okay, whatever. So we never ended up doing a baby gate. We never had any accidents. I mean, my fear was there because I would always like watch her, and if I like just turned my head for a minute and then I could hear her getting near the stairs, like I would be on her. But no accidents, no anything, and so we managed without that. I've also seen babies who have houses with fireplaces and the fire's on and they just get taught not to go near it and they don't. So maybe try and figure out, you know, if you can teach your child not to do that thing so that you don't have to go into getting another expense or whatever. Yeah, and I'm sure, like, you know, we were all brought up without baby gates and we were fine, mostly. In my earlier video, I did talk about baby acne, and our daughter had baby acne. She then later went on to develop eczema on her face, on her neck, and all those, like, you know, juicy bits, like the fleshy, you know, when babies are like fat and there's that like gap, or like behind the knees and things like that. So she did develop acne. I tried again to see whether the aloe vera would help. It didn't. It wasn't enough to manage it. So we were basically just using, what were we using to wash her initially? Gosh, I think we were just using some kind of like baby Johnson something, anyway, something to shower her in the bath with. And then we switched that out for oilatum soap. Oilatum soap seemed to balance her skin out a little bit. But then it just kind of persisted. Some products that I found that really helped me in terms of managing her eczema before it got like really inflamed, but like, you know, when it's just like a little bit aggravated. For that, I found that CeraVe, the brand, the skincare brand, the baby line was incredible. So I bought the CeraVe lotions and the gels and the whatever, and we used that on her skin, and that really helped to balance out her skin. Before I tried that, the pediatrician had recommended Epimax, and you can get that in most chemists in Kenya or like Nairobi. It is pretty pricey though, so like I mean, we used that for a bit, and then I was just like, no, I can get CeraVe, and CeraVe will be cheaper. So I used the baby stuff for a little bit, like the specific CeraVe baby stuff, and then now we just moved her on to like regular CeraVe lotion, and that is working great for her skin. She doesn't have flare-ups very often. If she does, then we would use a little bit of a steroid cream on those specific areas. So she did have a period where she had massive flare-ups and nothing was bringing it under control, and so then we kind of caved and then used steroid cream on her, which did really help bring it under control. But once it was kind of under control, I would immediately stop using it and then go back to using Epimax at the time, but now CeraVe. So we always have some on standby in case she has a flare-up, but she hasn't had a flare-up that bad in about the past year. The final kind of actual topic I want to talk about is toys, entertainment, things that work to kind of keep her occupied. And for this, there are kind of two ways for it. So there's like physical toys, and then there's like shows and other things that she liked. The physical toys that we got the most use out of were like baby gyms. I'll include a picture here because we don't have the one that we had for her. I think we gifted it out, but basically like a play mat with like a ring over the baby so they could reach up for these things and play with them. And then the one that we got had like a piano attached to the bottom, a little play piano. So when she was lying on her back, she'd be able to kick the piano, or when she was lying on her front, she'd be able to like press the buttons. And she liked that because it would like be like red, blue, green, and then it would be like elephant, and you know, it would do all these noises and things, and she really enjoyed that. Something else that she liked was, I just found this randomly, I think in Carrefour, like a little mobile telephone, but obviously like a kid version, and then you would press the buttons and it would say 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and it would sing little songs and stuff like that. She loved that. Something that I'm really keen on is books. So she has a little library of her own. What we found worked when she was super young was board books, because literally she would eat everything or tear everything. So don't try and go and get paper books. Like even if you were trying to read to her a book and you have her on your lap and she would tear that book. So that didn't work for me. So I looked out for board books. A really good place to look for board books is, oh gosh, what's this? Textbook Center has a ton of board books if you're looking for brand new ones. I also found some random Chandarana store which had kids books, which also had board books. And then these guys that sell books on the road, like secondhand books, you could go and check them out as well. They surely have board books as well. She just liked the fact that it was like colours, and I would sit with her and spend time with her and read to her. And I think that really helped with her vocabulary and kind of learning her colours and learning numbers and stuff. That has been amazing. Yeah, so it's kind of become a bit of our like routine and bonding time, so like to read books, and she'll go into like her little book box and bring out books for us now that she wants us to read. So I think it's a really nice culture to kind of develop when they're young. You can also get these books, and I can't remember where I got them from. I think I may have ordered them on Amazon, but they're basically like, not fabric books. Yeah, they're kind of like fabric books. And they have like numbers and letters and whatever, but it means that they can like, put it in their mouth, and they're not like tearing any paper. But in terms of kind of like TV shows and stuff like that, a couple of things that I would recommend on YouTube in terms of channels would be, number one, the Dave and Ava channel. So they have a channel where it's basically these two characters called Dave and Ava, and they do lots of nursery rhyme singing and alphabet and phonetics and that kind of stuff. So at the beginning she really wasn't, I think her concentration span for this actually kicked in after she turned 1, but just to flag it, she really enjoys that channel, and for her, singing and music sticks in her head. So she now knows all her numbers and her colours and stuff like that, and she's learnt that because we would sing songs over and over again, and it would kind of embed itself in her memory. So Dave and Ava I really like. And there's also a channel called Lingo Kids, which teaches kids the alphabet and other things about that. There's also an app for it, which is great. And then what else did I like for kids? Oh, and right now now she's 2, but right now she's really into Hoagie. So the Pink Fong channel, and then there's a character called Hoagie, and he does colours and numbers and all that kind of stuff, and she loves that. So for me, TV shows are more about the educational content, because trying to bring up a bright child, I mean, it is fun for her because, you know, it's colourful and it's animated and etc. But she's also learnt a lot through those platforms as well. So I would recommend those channels. I'll leave the links down below and you can check them out. Nursery rhymes were amazing. Yeah, just to help build her confidence and vocabulary and stuff like that as well. Yeah. Okay, so those are the kind of main topics that I could think of from the top of my head. And I'll now just go over things that I found useful and things that I have not found so useful. Some I've mentioned already, so I'll skip over that, but just focus on like my particular favorites. And number one is the baby bag that we got for her. I'll include a picture because it's in her room now. I'm not going to go and grab it because she's having a nap. But the baby bag that we got is kind of one of those rucksack ones. We bought it in London from John Lewis. It was a bit pricey, but I think totally worth it because the quality of the ones that I've seen locally are wanting. Like Biashara Street has dupe sale of this bag in the shops, but the inside build of them is not great. So if you can find a better built one, then look for one, or maybe just even get a rucksack. Why I really like her baby bag is the partitions. So it has partitions on the side and then a big deep cavern in the middle. So in the middle we would put like extra change of clothes, snacks, bottles, etc. And then in the sides it has a slot, and it also comes with like a changing mat that goes in the side, and then nappies and wipes and stuff would kind of be that way. That baby bag has been incredible. We use it all the time we leave the house when we've got to be somewhere. It's just amazing. It was expensive at the time. I thought it was expensive at the time because I think it was about like £60 or something, and I was like, excuse me. I thought I was going to be paying like £15 for a bag like this. But the quality of it has lasted over time. I think it would continue to last, and probably even gift it to a family member or something because the build is incredible. Something else that I've loved that used to go in her baby bag all the time when she was on formula was a thermos. So it's basically like I'll try and look for a picture. It's a long skinny thermos that we got. I think I also bought it in Carrefour. I think it was like about 1,000 shillings or thereabouts. It was long and skinny. So fill that up with water. So we'd have that thermos filled with hot water, and a small thermos and a small bottle filled with cold water. And then if I needed to mix her formula while we were out, then I could easily do what I needed to do with those supplies. It's been life-saving. Now that she's over the formula, when we're going on like long journeys and things, I'll fill it with milk that we've warmed up in the morning. It's just perfect, and would definitely recommend trying to look for a thermos to put in your baby bag. Pump, yes, breast pump was amazing. I bought an electric breast pump from Lansino, and it was incredible. I actually gifted it out to a family member recently because it just did the thing. I didn't have too much milk, but when my boobs would get full and maybe she was sleeping, or if I had to travel, I would really try and get some like extra milk out for her. So I would leave like, 1 bottle or 2 bottles in the fridge, enough for her to take while I was away. So I would totally recommend, if you can, looking into getting a electric breast pump, because then your hands are a little bit more free. If you can't get an electric one, of course, a manual one will do. But I'm honestly blessing all of you with the spirit of milk. Like, I need you to be cows, produce all the milk so that you don't need to think about formula. The diapers or nappies that your babies use is kind of specific to the child, because sometimes you can buy the most expensive diapers and the baby is like, no, and their skin refuses it. So figure out what works for you within your budget. But my favorite wipes are Pampers wipes. I've tried the Johnson's & Johnson's ones. I've tried all other brands of wipes, Bouncy, I don't know whatever wipe brand there is, I have tried it. But for me, the Pampers wipes are the best. They are a decent size in terms of how big they are, and also they have enough wetness in them, like, so that you can actually do what feels like a clean. Some of these other wipes, I feel like they don't have enough moisture in the actual towel, so it feels like you're just wiping your baby with like a dry cloth, as opposed to something to wipe off the germs and the pee and the poop before you do your jazz. So I would totally recommend Pampers wipes specifically. Things that weren't so useful, I didn't have too much on this list because I try not to buy things just for the hype. So I don't have too many of these things on this list that I, didn't think were so great. But for me, one thing that I think we spent so much money on, and really it wasn't necessary, at least with the lifestyle that we have had since she's been a baby and before she could walk, was a pram. Now, I know this is kind of like hit and miss. We bought a pram because in my mind I knew I needed a pram, and the pram that we bought, we shipped it in from the UK when we were there while I was pregnant, and It was a pram that came with an infant baby seat. The infant baby seat was incredible. That we used, I think, almost until she was about a year. Then we got her a front-facing regular car seat. But the actual pram itself, we weren't even going places with this baby so much. Like, I'd be going to my mum's house, we'd maybe go to the mall maybe on a Sunday or something. 1 or 2 times we would go somewhere where we would need the pram. But now it's actually just kind of like gathering dust. So I need to figure out what to do with it. But the pram, yeah, no. I wouldn't say that it's on top of your list. If you are going to get a pram, then maybe don't get one that is so expensive and look for one that isn't so bulky. Ours was pretty bulky because it had to be able to hold the infant baby seat, but maybe focus on the baby seat if you have a car, and then think about the pram as like a later point in time, unless you know that you're going to be moving around a lot with the baby and you're going to be places where the pram can work. Because listen, in these Kenyan roads, or we don't have pavements, let's be real, we don't have a lot of places where there's pavements, so unless you're going to a mall, and if you're just walking down the street, that pram isn't going to help you anyway, so it's not necessary. Number 2, please don't fall for the trap of buying a diaper warmer, wipes warmer. What are they? Wipes warmer? Don't do it. I didn't do it, but I'm just letting you know you don't need it. The baby's not going to die from a little bit of wiping their bum. The other thing you definitely, not definitely don't need, but I found to be extravagant, and we actually didn't use it, was the bottle warmer. So when we bought the bottles, we got ours from Tommy Tippy, and it came with like a sterilizer and a bottle warmer with it. We didn't use the bottle warmer at all, not necessary, leave it alone. The sterilizer was handy, but you can always just use, tablets, or just boil the bottles in hot water and salt, and you'll be fine. Oh, something that we didn't end up using for so long, because she just basically wasn't into it, was the baby walker. It depends on how your baby goes, like if they have these stages, but she literally just was like, I'm walking now, and then started running. So the baby walker was a little bit redundant. We did use it a little bit, but like not as much as I thought we would have used it. So it's not absolutely essential, but again, judge by your baby and see how that goes. Oh, and something else that you definitely don't need to do is be buying all the expensive clothes for your child. I didn't do this, but honestly, my child is like an outside child. She loves being outdoors. She loves being in the dust. She loves being in the mud. She just loves being like rough and ready. So if you see her most times, like if you were to bump into us, she's wearing leggings and a t-shirt, or like leggings or a tracksuit, something like practical for her to be able to run around in, and some Crocs. She's not really like out here in a dress, unless we've got somewhere to be. She's not really about that. Of course, that's personal preference, but if you have a baby like mine who really just enjoys playing, then don't, try and force her into a dress to play. Let her be in those leggings, let her be in those tracksuit bottoms, let her be in that hoodie, and then you can dress her up when she needs to be somewhere, or dress him up when he needs to be somewhere. But it wasn't something that, that held us so much. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a personal one, but I thought I'd throw it out there anyway. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the video. It was a bit of a long one, I suspect, because I've been talking for quite a bit. I'll try and narrow it down when I come to edit, let's see. But it was a long period of time, so I tried to be as comprehensive as possible. I hope you found it useful. If you did, then please make sure to give it a thumbs up. As always, please leave me a comment down below if there's anything that you feel that I haven't covered, or you need, to ask a little bit more in-depth questions. Of course, I'll offer you any information that I have or insight that I have as a mum. Bear in mind, again, this is what worked for me and my baby. So it may not work for you and your baby, but just take it as information, and fit it into your routine and how you kind of live your life. Slot it into your lifestyle, see whether it actually makes sense. But as always, take the guide from baby. Baby will tell you whether that's the right way to go or not, and you will be fine. If you have got a new baby coming up, if you have the baby right now, congratulations, amazing. And I hope you loved it.